Welcome to Career Uprising. I'm your host, Lorraine Rise, a career and executive coach dedicated to helping clients who are 40 plus to break free from feeling stuck and transform into the unstoppable force you're destined to become. I'm a former recruiter and two-time career changer, and I know what it takes to get hired. If you're in a job search, stuck in a toxic job, or simply hungry for what's next in your career, this show will provide you with a unique blend of practical strategies and big picture insights to guide you every step of the way. Let's start the uprising. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the show, and welcome, of course, again to 2025. We're still a little bit in January, I think, when this show comes out, and I'm so excited. I have my very first guest of the year. Beth Solomon is here. This is all about going from fired to fabulous. Beth has an incredible career story to share. She's a connection that I just recently made, really, just in the last couple of months, through a mutual connection that we have. And I think you are going to be very, very inspired by her story. Some of you might recall, if you've listened to the show for a while, I had my own experience as well with being fired back in 2015, something that I never thought was going to happen to me. Honestly, a little bit of ego in there, right? Nobody really expects that to happen to them in their career, but it does happen to good people all the time, right? Sometimes we're just not aligned. There's a values mismatch. There's a culture mismatch. Maybe we took a job for the wrong reasons. I have lived through that. And I have to say, it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. It completely changed the trajectory of my career and my life. And it's actually the reason why I'm here talking to you today on this show. It lit a fire under me that is still burning today. And I channeled it into something incredibly positive and built a business afterwards. So it looks a little different for everyone, but it can be a really, really good thing. But it's about knowing what to do next, how to bounce back from it. Or as Beth says, from fired to fabulous. I love that phrase. So I want you to get to know her a little bit more. She's going to come on in just a minute and share her career journey and her insights for how you can recover from something like this. Beth has a fascinating career path. She has one of those careers that is very unique, and it just makes you want to lean in and hear more. She started out as a radio operator in East Africa broadcasting for Voice of America. She was also a producer for ABC News when the Berlin Wall came down. She has truly witnessed history unfold and been there in some of the most pivotal moments. She also went into the newspaper world, writing opinions for major papers like the Atlanta Journal and Constitution, and she even made her way to Capitol Hill and became a speechwriter for Senator Sam Nunn. So this woman has a phenomenal and storied career. I'm sure she has many stories. Not only that, she also ended up at one point working for a major talent agency in Hollywood, and she has also gone to Yale. She's a Yale grad. The list goes on, but I want you to hear from her in her own words, her journey, the ups and the downs, and what led her to write her recent book, From Fired to Fabulous. So we are so happy to have you here, Beth. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Lorraine. Well, what a privilege to be here and what an honor to be the first show of the year. It feels already it's going to be a good year for me just starting it out this way. Yes, but as you said, my career, although I think it's been a very good one, it certainly had its ups and downs because I've been fired a lot. In fact, I've been fired more times than anyone I know. And I used to be really embarrassed about it. But then I noticed there was a story hidden in all those pink slips and dismissals. It's really hard to be fired. It's one of the toughest things that ever happens to you in a career. You feel embarrassed, humiliated, confused. I was financially terrified of what would happen. You know, it's a black mark. It just stirs up these feelings, the worst feelings you can have of rejection. And I think it really takes us back to the earliest rejections of our lives, when we were punished or told we were bad as little kids. And somehow all that stuff just gets stirred right up when this happens. Although, as you said, it happens all the time. And it really should be the best thing that's ever happened to you. But the hardest part is just picking yourself up off the floor when it happens to you. I remember and being fired. I mean, it was many times. And I somehow never saw it coming. I mean, I guess sometimes I did, but a lot of times I just thought I was doing a really good job. And if I worked hard and I was dedicated and I was doing my best and being honest, that everything else would sort of fall into place. But that's not how the workplace works. I realized the workplace is not fair. It's just a collection of human beings like any other collection of human beings that has its upsides and its downsides. And just because you're dedicated and you're smart and you're doing a good job, all of a sudden you can be terminated, dismissed, passed over. And I think the shock and awe of it really can knock us flat on our backs. And that's really the toughest part. What we need to realize in that moment, and what my book is about, is that by definition, it is the best thing that's ever happened to you. The universe has unleashed you from the bounds and boundaries, and it's really an opportunity to do something big and do something new. It's a matter of really getting your head in the proper place. And I do think it's super helpful not only to have friends who you're immediately in touch with, but to have, a professional coach to just get you through that moment. Um, it's like a death. We are so, especially people who are advanced in their careers, experienced in their careers, accomplished in their careers. Um, a lot of our identity is tied up in our work identity. We are successful. We think of ourselves as professionals, and when this happens, it's like the death of a part of your identity, at least temporarily. And so you do go through this sort of stages of grief. But I think the hardest part is just working with your head in those moments and sort of turning yourself, using this moment as a chrysalis, the cocoon. You are a caterpillar, you're feeling horrible, you want to curl up into a ball and hide under your desk. And really what the book is about is turning those moments into the chrysalis where you can emerge from your cocoon as the butterfly that you were destined to be.
Absolutely. You said a lot of things that I want to unpack a little bit more, and I agree with so much. There's a lot of emotions that just hit you all of a sudden, right? None of the emotions that we want to feel, like the shame and the embarrassment. Nobody wants to admit it, but that is so normal to feel in a situation like that. And one thing that I think people struggle with, I'm curious what you think, is the lack of control, right? We all want to feel like we're in control of our career and our life. And when something is forced upon us, we don't have control. And that's very triggering. That's very uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's not of their choosing, even though it might actually be what's best for them. So we have to let go of that ego and think, okay, maybe I didn't know what was right for me. Maybe I wasn't doing what was right for me and it's been forced upon me. But getting to a place of acceptance within that, I think is challenging, right? That's how I felt. I felt like it would happen to me, like I didn't have control over the situation, like something was being forced upon me, and no one likes that.
Right. Exactly. Lorraine, they say change is a good idea. Change is good when it's your idea. And,
Yes, right.
it's not your idea by definition when you get terminated or passed over. I had one job where I was the CEO of a very small trade association, and I was 18 months into the job. I had turned things around. It was like an overturned car in a ditch, and seas of red ink and warning letters from the IRS. So you are not in compliance. You are going to lose your nonprofit status. And the whole staff had quit. And I got to work and turned it around. And 18 months into the job, the board said, we're very sorry, but we've decided to go in a different direction. And I thought they were going to give me a raise, and I'll never forget the feeling of I welcomed my board chair and vice chair and treasurer into the office, and I had all the bagels and donuts and would you like coffee, tea, orange juice? Like I was really excited for this meeting because of all the KPIs and the numbers were looking so good. And I walked into that conference room and the treasurer said, "Beth, shut the door." And I thought, oh, wow, that's abrupt. But he's kind of a tough, like, banker from New York. So I jumped up and I shut the door and sat down. And then the chair of the board, a small woman with curly hair, she started reading from this stack of papers, and she was trembling. The papers were rattling so loudly in her hands that it was like a bird flapping its wings. I mean, and she was reading that the board of directors had met and they had decided to terminate my employment and they were going in a different direction. And she kept reading and I was just reeling, thinking, oh my God, what's happening here? Just couldn't believe it. And then she said, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Why? Yes, I have a question. Why?" I mean, I just didn't understand it. And of course, in the modern, HR controlled way these things are done, they don't tell you.
No, of
They
course not.
legally, I guess, risky. They don't tell you. So they just keep saying, well, we're going in a different direction. I mean, that's what they told me. And then I said, okay, okay. I said, well, could I talk with my team? This little staff of 5 people, we worked together and built the IKEA desks together and so forth. And I was so proud of them. I didn't want them to feel this horrible upset that I was feeling. And I said, can I talk with them? And they said, your team has left the building. And so it's just like one shock after the other. And they said, you can clean up your desk now, or we'll pack up your things and have them shipped to you. And I just, in this moment, Lorraine, you're really just like, it's traumatic. It's traumatic. It's scary. And I thought to myself, I just need a minute to stabilize my emotions. And I said, yeah, I'll clear out my desk. And so I did that. And by the time I finished, I was actually feeling a lot better. And I think I even said to them on the way out, hey, if you need anything, just let me know. I mean, I, I at least could fake being calm and in control. But as you said, the lack of control is so it just turns you upside down. However, that happened after 18 months, and they ended up giving me a 6-month severance. So I was paid for 2 years, including health insurance, for a job I did for 18 months. And had that been the offer going into it, I would have said, yes, please sign me up. That sounds like a great deal. I'll work for 18 months and be paid for 2 years. I mean, where do I sign?
Right.
But in that moment, you don't feel that way. You feel like, oh my God, how could this be happening to me? Like you
Of
said.
course, yeah. So what what's the first thing someone does? So this happens, right? You get fired, you're home now. Your mindset's probably a wreck. Where does somebody begin to pick themselves back up? Is it a mindset shift? Is it going out and getting help from someone? How do you begin the process of healing from something like this?
Great question. So, first of all, I think you should get it into your mind that this is an extended vacation. Okay. And you have an opportunity to do some things that you inevitably haven't been doing. So in the many times I was fired, I would just start cleaning things up in my house. Like, there's a stack of papers over there that needs to be dusted. Oh, my closet really is so disorganized. And doing those small tasks reestablish that sense of control. And then you're keeping busy. You are, I think you have to allow for the grief. You're going to have a few days of like grief. And I think it's important to allow that. You might need to cry. You might need to um, just let yourself grieve however you do that. But then I like to do these small tasks that give me a sense of accomplishment, and keep me busy a little bit. And then from there, I really think that you have this benefit of time. All of a sudden, you have a lot of time on your hands, and you want to sort of fill the time, get into some rhythms or schedule of exercise and doing things that are good for your soul and your spirit. I think it's also a good time to sort of rediscover things you like that you don't have time for when you're working. Now, in addition to sort of giving yourself chicken soup for the soul, let's say, with this extra time you have, I do think it's very important right away to start contacting friends. Family is tough. They probably know about this, and that's where you're just going to feel crummy about it. But it's your friends and colleagues, because of course you have been networking, during your career. And you need to get the word out like right away. And I say there's a public story and there's a private story. And your private story is, oh my God, the board of directors, you won't believe it. They just fired me after 18 months. I can't believe it. They're so stupid. We really had turned things around. What am I going to do? I can't believe this. That's your private story. The public story, which is going to be for um, contacts, people who can help you, networking, acquaintances, say, I've left the association and it was a great run for 18 months. They decided to go in a different direction, and I realized this is an excellent opportunity for me because I'd really like to get more into the accounting world, or I'd like to get more into the franchise world. Um, so you have a very quick couple of sentence story that doesn't assign blame. You don't want to ever assign blame to them or yourself, and just move the conversation into what's happening next. I'd love to sit down and have coffee with you to pick your brain a little bit. So that's your public story. And so while you're grieving and you're cleaning your closets and you're hopefully getting some more exercise, doing some yoga, maybe even start to think about volunteering or things you like to do that you won't have time when this extended vacation ends. You also really need to immediately start, polishing up that resume and reaching out to your network to pick their brains about what's happening in the marketplace, because now you are a candidate. And I also think that when people get fired, we don't realize that it gives urgency to the search that really isn't there when you just feel stuck in a job. When you call up your friends and acquaintances and say, you know what, the association decided to move in a different direction. I'm now looking at opportunities. I'm looking forward to it. They get that this is scary and no one wants to be in that situation. And in my experience, most of my contacts and even people I hadn't talked with in a long time, they said, of course, we'll have coffee, Beth. Let's do it next week. So there's an urgency to the search that is a real value. My experience was that contacts and acquaintances really jumped right in because no one wants to be in that situation. And they know that when they inevitably are, They want their friends and contacts to respond to them. So I would say that's sort of a summary of what can happen in the initial, let's say, um, 2 to 3 weeks, that sort of gets you back up on your feet, and then moving toward bringing that positive self, realizing the opportunity of this, because by the time you're getting into job interviews and really even meeting with your acquaintances and your network, you want to be bringing that shining best self, that confident best self that attracts the universe and attracts the opportunities that are out there.
Absolutely. So, a number of great kind of takeaways that I heard you say that people can do. So, one is try to stay productive, try to stay busy, focusing on what you can control. Then, so that's one thing I heard. Get help. Don't go through it alone, which I would completely reinforce and I agree with. I tell people don't go through a job search alone. Gosh, let alone getting fired, right? You need a support system. So, I completely agree with that as well. And then I also heard you say really allowing for the grief, acknowledging this sucks. This is really hard, right? Like it's unfair, it's whatever. Call it what it is. That's fine. But what I tell people too is once you go through that, don't live in that space. You can visit for a little while. You can go there for some time, but don't live from that space. Eventually we have to come back up, right? And we have to get active and get productive. It's a little bit different time frame for everybody, but it's important to not just stuff it down. Absolutely, because it's
Right.
going to come back up. We don't
That's
acknowledge
right,
it.
Lorraine. And that's right. And I think that it's a great time to get help from a coach, because it's almost like, you have experienced a death. I mean, it is that, I mean, the death is this part of your identity that was wrapped up in that job. And, we are all, I have never met or heard of anyone who didn't go through a kind of an emotional trauma through this. And some people are scarred for life. I mean, so it really makes sense in that moment, although you may feel financially squeezed. I mean, this is the moment to get that help, to get you moving out of that trough as quickly as possible and back to, the opportunity that it is. I would also say, it's tempting, just as you said, to sort of hang in the pain um and allow it to become unhealthy, to replay conversations and moments in your head. When did it go wrong? When did I get on the bad side of that guy? Why didn't I see this coming? There's clean pain and there's dirty pain. Clean pain is, wow, this sucks. I feel scared. I feel embarrassed. I feel humiliated. I don't have any energy. Ugh, this sucks. Dirty pain is, I am so stupid. Why didn't I see that coming? This is a huge stain on my resume. I will never recover from this. You cannot pile on yourself. And this is where I think professional help can really keep you on a healthy course, because this is a very common problem and we shouldn't be embarrassed about it. I mean, a big part of the reason I wrote this book, Lorraine, is that I realized, like, we don't talk about this. Nobody talks about it, and it's so normal. So I wanted to sort of take the shame off of this experience and say, it's okay. Not only is it okay, but it's a necessary step in most people's careers that is actually highly valued by employers down the road. They know that if you can go through this, you build resiliency, you build relationships of steel. Looking back on my career, I wouldn't have, it was much more valuable to me to go through these and grow from it than any set of terminations hindered my career. And another aspect I think people don't really realize is that just the changing of jobs is what it takes to raise your compensation. So in 10 years and 4 terminations that I had, I calculated my compensation increased 400%. So, and that's not unusual. But it
Yeah.
just sucks when it happens. But to realize the potential of it, and especially if you get help from people like you, Lorraine, it's a great opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so as we wrap up here, tell our listeners a little bit more about the book. It's called From Fire to Fabulous. Where can they find it? And maybe just very briefly, an overview. What are some of is there a certain chapter you want to call out or anything? How did you structure it? What's in the book? What can people expect from it?
Sure. Well, thank you. It's called From Fired to Fabulous. It's available on Amazon and at Politics and Prose in Washington. It is the subtitle is How to Turn Professional Fiascos into Your Launchpad to Success. And it's a combination of my kind of hair-raising, embarrassing stories, but also a very practical guide about what to do in the days after, the weeks after, everything from how to refresh your resume, to how to handle the interview, how to, what to say and what not to say about these bumps that happen, how to write thank you notes, how to network, what is effective networking. So I think it's a practical guide as well as I hope being an entertaining read. I mean, some people say you can read this book as a self-help um, or a business book, but it's should be entertaining and fun as well as being the guide that I hope people can benefit from when they're in this tough moment. I will also say
Mhm.
that my own path of terminations led to meeting the love of my life, and we're getting married. And this never would have happened had I not been terminated over and over again. And so, I don't necessarily recommend that you get fired as often as I did, but if you haven't done it, you might want to try it sometime.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Congratulations. I love to hear good things that come out of a crisis, and there always are good things. And I like the perspective that you have, right? So every step along the way has a reason and a purpose, even if we don't see it. It's absolutely true, and it makes us who we are. It leads us to the person that we are today, and sometimes maybe even the love of your life. That's a wonderful happy ending. I love that. So Beth's website is From Fired to Fabulous. I would absolutely recommend that listeners now go to the website, look for the book on Amazon, get a copy. I think it's a phenomenal complement to the message that we have here on Career Uprising and some similarities to my own experiences as well. Absolutely. So Beth, I just want to thank you, first of all, for having the courage to write the book, because that's not easy to do. I've written a book myself. Again, part like memoir, part self-help a little bit. It's kind of a quasi book in there like yours. And so I can relate on that level. So thank you for doing that and for coming onto the show today.
Thank
Really
you so
appreciate
much,
it.
Lorraine. It's an honor to be here, and I look forward to talking with you again.
Absolutely. All right. So take care, Beth, and everybody go out and buy her book. She's truly amazing, From Fired to Fabulous. And we'll be back in just another week or two with another show. Take care, everyone. Hey, it's Lorraine, and I want to say thanks for listening. If you found value in today's show, I would be honored to have your review on Apple Podcasts. It's the single best way to help this show be found by other listeners, and you'll earn some good karma. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you next time on Career Uprising.